The city bus pulled up to the rain-drenched shelter, its headlights cutting through the evening gloom, its doors groaning open. An elderly man in a worn coat climbed aboard, patting his pockets with a trembling, apologetic hand. He didn't have the full fare. Before he could back off, Emma pressed a single coin into his palm, the only one she had. She smiled gently at his relief, but as the doors closed behind her, her own pocket was empty.
I only have bus fare, not enough for two.
No one heard her whisper. She turned toward the exit, ready to step back into the rain. Across the aisle, Thomas Hale had seen everything. The coin given, the empty palm, the stoic acceptance.
She gave away her last dime to a stranger. And now she's going to walk home in this storm.
He hadn't felt this certain about anything in weeks. He reached for his transit card and stood. He moved through the aisle just as the driver looked up, and Emma's worn shoe hovered over the step. Thomas reached the front, just as Emma's foot was about to leave the bus. He tapped his transit card twice. The machine beeped twice. The driver raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Emma turned, confusion splashing across her face.
What are you doing? You didn't have to.
I saw what you did for that man. Let me do this for you.
Emma looked at him, really looked, and saw no pity, no transaction, just a tired kindness that matched her own.
There's an empty seat next to mine. It's warmer than the street.
Still clutching her raincoat, she hesitated. Then she gave a single, slow nod. She slid into the window seat, and he settled beside her, leaving a careful space between them. The bus pulled away from the curb, rain streaking the glass beside her. Neither spoke for a long moment.
Thank you. I wasn't sure kindness like that still existed.
You are welcome. But I've got to ask, why give a stranger your last coin when you had nothing left?
He reminded me of my granddad. When you are in nursing school, you see people at their worst. Sometimes a little kindness is the only medicine you can offer.
Nursing school? That's a tough road. You must be running on caffeine and willpower.
Pretty much night classes, clinicals, and a job that never ends. But I like being the person who stays when others leave.
I respect that. I am a carpenter. Furniture mostly. There's something honest about building things that last.
She looked at his calloused hands, the same hands that had tapped a transit card for her without a second thought.
I am Emma, by the way, Emma Cole.
Thomas Hale. Nice to meet you, Emma.
He repeated her name quietly, as if committing it to memory. The rain outside softened, and the bus hummed along the wet streets.
He didn't ask for anything back, just a seat and a name. Maybe that's all some people need.
Your granddad. Is that where you learned to give so freely?
My dad, actually. He used to say, you measure a life by what you give, not what you keep.
She carries her father in every coin she gives away. No wonder she's running on empty. Mine passed when I was young. I've been building things ever since, maybe trying to fill the quiet.
For a moment, the bus was just a shell around two people who understood loss. Their hands rested on the seat, inches apart. Emma's fingers curled slightly, then stopped. He held his breath, waiting. The bus lurched, and the moment passed. A recorded voice crackled over the speaker. Next stop, Crescent Street. Thomas straightened.
That's me. I guess this is where I get off.
Already? I barely know him, but this bus suddenly feels less lonely.
It was good talking to you, Emma. Really.
Goodbye, Thomas. And thank you for the fare, and for making this night feel less heavy.
Thomas stood, the bus braking gently. He held her gaze for 1 second longer than necessary, then turned toward the door. The doors hissed open, and cold rain swept into the aisle. Thomas stepped off without looking back. Emma pressed her palm against the cold window, watching him shrink into a dark figure on the wet pavement.
He didn't ask for my number. He just left. Maybe that's what a real kindness looks like.
Thomas walked with his head down, rain soaking his flannel, his hands buried in his pockets. The streets felt emptier than usual.
She's still on that bus. Maybe this is all it was meant to be. A few minutes of warmth on a wet night.
The bus pulled away, and the window where Emma sat turned dark. The seat beside her stayed empty.
He walked into the rain like he had nothing to prove. Maybe that's why I am still looking.
Two strangers, a bus ride apart, each holding the echo of a conversation they hadn't expected and didn't know how to forget. Thomas pushed open the workshop door and flipped the switch. Dusty bulbs flickered to life, chasing shadows from the corners. He picked up a chair in mid-repair, but the sandpaper hovered. His hands remembered the weight of that coin, the brush of her raincoat.
It was just a bus ride. 2 stops and a thank you. So why is my mind still on that bench?
He forced his hands to move, sanding the same curve 3 times over, but the motion was empty. Automatic. An hour later, he stood at the window, watching rain streak down the glass. His workshop felt smaller tonight. He gave up and went home. In his apartment, the kettle boiled, and he poured coffee he didn't really want.
She said kindness was medicine. Maybe I've been self-medicating with solitude too long.
He sat at the table, the mug untouched, listening to the rain. It was the quietest hour of his week.
I don't even have her number. But maybe that's the point. Some things aren't meant to be chased.
But even as he said it, the memory of her voice clung to the edges of the room, refusing to be just another forgotten ride. Across town, Emma sat in a fluorescent classroom, her textbook open to patient empathy. Rain tapped the window like a reminder. The instructor droned, but Emma's mind replayed the bus, the old man's trembling hands, the coin leaving her palm.
The lecturer said empathy was the core of care. Thomas didn't need a degree to know that. He just acted.
She scribbled a note, then wrote bus fare in the margin and quickly scratched it out. After class, she retreated to the library, burying herself in textbooks. The words blurred into a smile she couldn't forget.
That carpenter in gray flannel. He said. He built things to fill the quiet. That line has been circling my brain all night.
A classmate sat across from her, studying her face with a worried frown.
Just the usual. Caffeine might be the only thing keeping my blood pumping.
She didn't mention the double shift, the skipped dinner, or the empty fridge, but beneath the exhaustion, a quiet warmth lingered, the memory of a stranger who had paid her fare without being asked. A wall calendar in Thomas's workshop showed 2 months crossed off. The days blurred together under a deadline. He'd taken a commission for a full dining set, tables and chairs for a restaurant opening. The pay was good, the hours punishing. Coffee cups piled up on the bench, cold dregs marking each late night. He stopped going home before midnight.
That woman on the bus, Emma, a nursing student. How does a person that generous still exist?
He shook his head and turned back to the saw. The wood didn't care about his memories. Late one Thursday, he sat at his apartment table, too tired to eat, too wired to sleep. The rain outside was a constant murmur.
The quiet used to be my refuge. Now it just feels like an empty room waiting for someone who isn't there. She's probably just another face I'll never see again. Thousands of people ride the same buses every day.
But the distraction was costing him. He'd measured a leg wrong, had to start over. The client was calling and his focus was slipping. He was overworked, underslept, and running on the fumes of a memory he refused to name. Something was going to give. Emma Cole dragged herself to night class after a hospital shift. The rain hammered the windows, and her eyelids felt like sandpaper. A classmate leaned over and asked if she could take Saturday's clinical. Emma didn't even blink.
Sure, I'll cover it. Don't worry.
In the practice lab, she set up a CPR dummy, but her hands were unsteady on the compressions.
Keep it together. You've done this 100 times.
At midnight in the library, her head dropped onto the open textbook. The words blurred into gray lines. A professor passing by paused and touched her shoulder gently.
I am fine. Really, just need more coffee.
She nodded through the lecture on burnout and self-care, but her feet were already moving toward the next thing.
I am the one who gives away the coin. I am not allowed to be the one who needs saving.
Thomas, powered on the table, saw just before dawn, the blade humming angrily. He was hours behind schedule, coffee doing nothing for his focus. He pushed the wood through, but his reflection in the safety guard flickered. A flash of tired brown eyes, a rain-wet smile.
Emma, The bus. It was just a coin.
The wood kicked back. His left hand slipped forward, and the blade caught his forearm before he could even scream. He fell backward onto the concrete, clutching his arm as crimson bloomed through the gray flannel. The saw kept screaming. A colleague burst through the door, face draining of color. He grabbed a greasy rag, pressing it hard against the wound. The colleague fumbled for his phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. "Stay with me, Thomas. Stay with me." Sirens wailed in the distance, threading through the rain. Thomas's eyes fluttered, the world going gray at the edges.
Don't let go. The rain. Her name was Emma.
Then the world narrowed to a single point of light, and the pressure of a stranger's hand on his arm. The ambulance screamed into the lot, red lights slicing through the gray dawn. 2 paramedics burst through the workshop door, their bags swinging. One pressed a fresh bandage while the other called his name. They lifted him onto the stretcher, the oxygen mask cold against his face, and the gurney clattered over the threshold. Inside the ambulance, a paramedic monitored his vitals, her voice a steady murmur through the siren. His vision fractured into streaks of light, while a calm voice urged him to hold on. The bus, rain, a coin, flashed through his mind, dissolving before he could latch onto them. A hand rested over his, warm and firm, anchoring him to the present. The squeeze was deliberate, kind. He tried to speak, but the words were cotton. The voice returned, a calm assurance that he would be okay. The ambulance slowed, the siren winding down. Doors opened to a wall of harsh light and hurried footsteps. He was inside now, the gurney rushing through a corridor, the hand not letting go. Through the haze, Thomas saw the bus shelter, rain slanting silver. He felt the weight of a coin leaving his palm. Her tired smile surfaced, the one she gave before whispering she couldn't pay for 2.
Bus fare. I paid her fare.
The paramedic leaned closer, but the words were nothing to her. Just a patient's delirium. He tried to grasp the memory, but the siren shredded it, leaving only the feeling of kindness. The paramedic's voice came steady and low, nothing like the tired bus whisper he'd heard before. The ambulance reversed into the emergency bay, the back doors opening to a blinding white corridor. Voices overlapped. Vitals, blood loss, prep room 3. And Thomas was lifted into the flood of light. He was still reaching for the coin in his mind when the hand holding his finally let go. The doors slid shut behind him, sealing out the rain and the memory, leaving only the frantic race for his life. The gurney flew down the corridor, wheels humming on linoleum, nurses in blue peeling back to let it pass. They burst into Trauma Bay 3, where a team was already assembling under the surgical lamps. A doctor rattled off orders. Type and cross. Start a line. Page the attending. Hands moved in, practiced chaos. Emma Cole stepped through the door, pulling on gloves with the efficiency of 1,000 practiced motions. Her face was hidden behind a surgical mask, her eyes calm and focused, the tired student nowhere visible. She took her place beside the stretcher, her eyes scanning the wound, not the face. Thomas's face was turned to the side, smeared with blood and sawdust, unrecognizable to anyone who hadn't already memorized it. Another nurse handed her a pair of trauma shears, and she began cutting away the sleeve of his flannel. The team moved as one, voices clipped and precise, oxygen hissing, monitor beeping, each second a lifetime. Emma Cole had no idea that the man beneath her hands was the stranger who had paid her fare 2 months ago, in the rain. Emma reached for a damp cloth and began wiping the blood and sawdust from the patient's face, needing a clear view of the wound. As the grime cleared, the lines of his jaw surfaced, then the gentle slope of his nose. Something tugged at the back of her memory. She went still, the damp cloth hovering in midair. The chaos of the trauma bay faded to a dull roar.
Those eyebrows, that chin, I've seen that face before. But where?
Then it hit her, the bus. The rain. His voice saying, "There's an empty seat next to mine."
Number. It can't be. The carpenter. Thomas Hale.
Her fingers tightened on the cloth, and for a moment her hands trembled, the steadiness she was known for threatening to shatter. But the doctor's voice barked an order, and instinct slammed back into place. She could not fall apart here. She forced her hands steady, pressing a fresh bandage to the wound, each motion precise, mechanical. The coin she'd given away had bought her the steadiest hands in this room. But Thomas couldn't know she was here. Not yet. The wound screamed louder than the saw ever had. Thomas's left hand curled around the gurney rail, knuckles white with agony, a guttural groan escaping his lips. Emma saw the silent strain and, without thinking, laid her gloved hand over his, steadying the rail and his panic with the same deliberate pressure she'd use on a pulse.
Stay with me, Thomas. We've got you.
His eyelids cracked open at the sound. That voice, low and steady, tugged at something buried beneath the pain.
Feels like rain and a stranger's hand.
Emma's heart seized, but she didn't flinch. She couldn't, not here. His life hung on her composure. The doctor called for a suture kit, and Emma's training took over, her hands moving without thought. Thomas tried to focus on the face above the mask, but the lights carved her into a blur of white and shadow. She squeezed his hand once, a silent promise, then let go to assist the doctor.
That voice is the only thing that's made sense since the saw. Who is she?
The doctor's scalpel met the raw tissue, and Thomas screamed. Emma flinched but forced her hands to remain perfectly still. Immediately, she took his hand and pressed her thumb into his palm to give him something to focus on. For a moment, his vision swam into focus, and he looked directly into the tired, kind eyes above the surgical mask.
I know those tired eyes, but from where?
Then a fresh spike of agony tore through his arm, shattering the thought.
Stay with me, Thomas. We're almost through the worst part. Just a little longer.
He couldn't answer. His hand just crushed hers until the bones ground together. The doctor worked fast, and Emma watched the monitor, praying the numbers wouldn't crash. Behind her mask, Emma's jaw was a tight line, but her hands kept moving with a rhythm born of hours of practice.
That voice. It feels like rain on a bus window, but the memory skitters away like water on glass.
The doctor set down his instruments, exhaled, and gave Emma a single approving nod. Vitals held. A monitor glowed steady green. A quiet heartbeat where there had been chaos minutes before. Emma stripped off her gloves and slipped into the staff locker room, the door clicking shut behind her. Only then did her hands begin to shake, not from exhaustion, but from a truth she couldn't yet speak.
He's the bus guy, the carpenter, and he doesn't even know I was the one holding him together.
She pressed her forehead against the cool metal, breathing through the weight of it.
I gave away my last coin, and somehow the universe handed it back as steady hands. But he can't know. Not yet.
In the recovery bay, Thomas slept under sedation, his bandaged arms still. The monitor's beep was the only sign of life. She dried her eyes, straightened her scrubs, and walked back out, the tired student replaced by a nurse with a secret. Thomas clawed his way up from the muffle of sedation, each breath a thick labor. Soft daylight pressed warm against his eyelids, dragging him toward the surface. He opened his eyes to a blur that slowly sharpened. A recovery room, with a quiet monitor and a nurse in blue scrubs, writing on a clipboard, her back half turned.
Hospital. The table saw. My arm is wrapped like a log of dead wood.
The nurse heard his stir, looked over her shoulder, then set the clipboard aside. Her face was no longer hidden behind a surgical mask, just a tired, familiar shape framed by dark hair.
You are awake. Good. You've been through a lot, Mr. Hale.
That voice. It's calm water over stones. I've heard it before. Where?
She moved to his bedside, her footsteps silent, and her fingers cool and steady, closed around his wrist to check his pulse.
Your arm will heal. You are lucky you got here fast.
Those eyes. Tired, but kind. I know those eyes. But the drugs have stolen their name.
This time, there was no mask to hide behind. She met his searching gaze with quiet patience, waiting for the fog to lift. Then something clicked behind his eyes. A sound, a rain scent, the memory of a coin. His dry lips parted slowly.
I know that voice. The bus, the rain. You were there. You gave away your last coin, and I paid your fare.
A tear slipped from her eye, but a genuine smile pushed through the exhaustion. She nodded, voice wavering.
You are the bus guy. Emma Cole. I never thought I'd see you again.
You were the steadiness I felt during the surgery. I couldn't see, but I knew someone kind was there.
Her composure cracked, but she held his gaze, letting the truth sit between them.
That coin you paid for me, it bought you the steadiest hands in the room tonight.
Thomas stared at her, the weight of the reversal settling deep. A $2 bus fare, repaid with his life.
Emma, I never forgot your voice. It was the only thing that made sense in the dark.
I am here now, and I am not getting off until your next stop.
Thomas looked at their joined hands, the bandaged one and the steady one. It felt like holding a promise.
The fare I paid. I thought it was just a bus ride, but it brought me you again.
You sat with me when I was just a stranger in the rain. I wrote bus fare in my notebook that night. Scratched it out, but couldn't forget.
She squeezed his fingers, a silent answer to all the lost time.
What now? I'll be stuck here for weeks, and you've got night classes.
I am a nurse in training. I can check on you between shifts.
Emma took the chart and wrote her number in the margin, her smile the brightest thing in the room.
Call me when you are out. Or sooner. I owe you at least one coffee.
Thomas closed his eyes, and for the first time since the accident, the future didn't feel like an empty room. A gentle knock preceded the doctor, who checked the bandages, nodded at the monitor, and murmured something reassuring. Emma stepped back, but stayed close, her gaze flickering between the monitor and Thomas's tired face. Vitals are strong. You are healing well, the doctor said, and left them alone again.
I have to finish my rounds, but I'll be back after my shift.
I'll be right here. This arm isn't taking me anywhere fast.
She squeezed his hand once more, lingering for a moment before letting go. She pulled a small coin on a delicate chain from her pocket and set it on the bedside table.
For luck. I've carried it since that rainy night. Now you hold on to it.
She walked to the door, glanced back with a soft smile, and slipped into the corridor. The room settled into a warm, steady quiet. The monitor's beep a soft, rhythmic promise. The bus shelter stood empty, rain plinking on the same metal bench where it all began. But in the quiet of a recovery room, two hands rested together, no longer strangers. The coin Emma had given away returned as the pressure of a steady palm, a compass in the dark. A bus fare bought him the steadiest hands in the room, and a second chance. And somewhere beyond the hospital window, a bus route carried on. But for Thomas and Emma, the destination had changed. Fate had collected a debt of kindness and repaid it with the very life it once touched. She would finish her rounds, he would heal, and the coin would sit on the bedside table like a silent vow. They never did get off at the same stop until now. Somewhere in the city, the rain kept falling, but it no longer felt like an ending, because the smallest kindness, like a coin dropped into a palm, can circle the world and come back as steady hands.